Inspired Startups here, continuing our series of interviews with tech founders. I'm joined this evening by Conor McNally from ShotClip. Really looking forward to hearing about his story this evening. But before we kind of dig into it, Conor, can you tell us a bit about ShotClip?
Yeah, sure. So at ShotClip, we're changing the whole movie making market where we want to make anybody with a smartphone a skilled movie maker. And it's going quite well. We've got 45,000 users, 5,000 people signing up each month. And I suppose the problem that we're solving is that I suppose a lot of people, when it comes to taking videos on their phones, they just take random clips, very often not very interesting. They don't tell a story, and they just sit on their phone. They never do anything with them. So I guess if you want to create something that's interesting and fun to watch and to share, you need to get a sequence of shots that tell a story and put that together and make a movie. But unfortunately, that can be quite difficult to do for a lot of people because it involves video editing and things like that. So we've simplified that whole process of making a movie, and how we do that is through templates. So we have templates for lots of popular events, for a wedding video, for travel videos, for rock concerts, for birthday parties, things to do with your kids. I guess what a template is just it's a breakdown of all the shots you should get to make a really cool video, and each shot describes how to use your camera, what you're trying to achieve, and what video editing tips, things like that. So by making your way through this shot list one by one and filling up with content, you're making a movie and telling a story. And where it becomes really relevant is on a smartphone, because you have this on your smartphone. You're at the event, in the moment, you get that shot, you move on to the next shot, and it means that you don't have to come back and do any more video editing. You've actually sequenced the whole video there and then, and hey presto, at the end of it, you've told a story like a professional would make a movie, and you've made a really cool video.
Great. You mentioned something there at the start, which I love, I'm really interested in, is that you've got 45,000 users, and you're growing at 5,000 a month, which is a fantastic place to be in. Maybe you could tell us a bit about the journey. Like everybody that's building, everybody out there that's a builder or that's a starter or whatever they're doing, getting that initial momentum and traction is so hard. How have you come about doing that? Or what was your journey?
Yeah, well, it hasn't been easy.
It never is.
We've gone through a couple of pivots and revamps the product. I mean, a lot of it is you talk about product market fit, and that's really important as a startup to get that right. You don't need to have any developers or anything to get a product market fit. But when you feel you have a product market fit, then you do need resources. You do need investment to develop the product the way you would like it. And that's the problem that a lot of startups have, is that they don't have that investment. So they can't do the product the way they want. So they have to do a tamed down version and try and get some traction. So that's what we had to do. Initially, we got a 20k investment from an angel. We targeted the wedding market, and we did okay with that. Australia's #1 wedding website liked it. They partnered with us. We got a few hundred couples used it, and I guess people liked the idea. It validated the idea, but what they didn't like was our product, because we just didn't have the resource to do it properly.
Okay.
And the good feedback we got from that was that they wanted it. Why am I doing wedding videos? Why can't I do other types of videos? So it's kind of a staged process. If you can do a little bit, that gets you some traction, validation, and you get a little bit more. And it's kind of it's a slow, painful process in some ways, but it's kind of the nature of the thing. After that, we got a 50k investment to open it up to what it is today, basically. So it target more other events and travel and rock concerts and all that kind of thing, and that allowed us to be a lot more active in terms of gaining users. We kind of identified that there was an existing demand on Google, so SEO and content marketing and things like that were a big thing for us. It was all guerrilla marketing. There wasn't any spend because we didn't have it, but content marketing, if it's done right, can get you a lot of traction. The main thing you're trying to do with it is get people talking about you, and there's no point in generating content and putting it up there if nobody's going to read it. The main goal of content marketing is networking, helping bloggers first, building relationships with them, so when you do post content, they'll talk about you. And if they talk about you, then you just don't know who's going to pick it up. And luckily, by doing that, a few of the big tech journals in South America in particular, and Spanish journals, wrote about us, and we got thousands of users in single days just because these guys wrote about us. And the reason we got them in the first place because we were very active in terms of content marketing and the networking that goes with that.
Great, good to hear. Just picking up one of the things you mentioned there was product market fit. And you were saying that, and I think this might be relevant to people that are watching and listening at home, that oftentimes you don't need developers to get product market fit. There is a kind of a rush for people to go, I've got to start building, I've got to start doing this, the clock is ticking, there's this, that, and the other. Yeah. But people can validate their idea without building and without really spending that much money. Maybe you've got some thoughts around that, or have you seen that kind of happening?
Yeah, I mean, we did it wrong the first time when we did the wedding product. I went straight to developers, and that's why the product wasn't very good, because we kind of did it the wrong way around. The
hindsight is wonderful, isn't it? Looking at these things.
The second time I did it, I did do the whole graphic design and UX first, and user tested that, but it was with an outsourced graphic designer, which is not ideal either. The actual best thing to do, and it's a great opportunity in Ireland at the moment, is there's lots of graphic designers coming out of college, can't get jobs. I think JobBridge is a great scheme. We got a graphic designer as an intern. He was brilliant. We're launching a whole new platform, and he's been fantastic at doing the UX and graphic design. And I've had him full time. And when you have someone like that full time, you know, it'll just take your product to a completely new level, and you don't even need to go near developers until your idea is really well thought
refined,
through.
And you've got everything.
And you can use you can use your test designs, because you can make PDFs clickable. You can put them on usertesting.com.
Yeah.
You know, you can get complete strangers to look at it and see if they understand it, and you know, why would you use this, and you can refine. And once you've got something that actually is going to, you know, attract people are going to get excited about it. Then you go to developers, and developers love that too, because developers want something that's very solid, and they know this is exactly what I'm developing, and that'll speed up development time, it'll cut costs, and it means that you won't have to come back and change things later. So I'd highly recommend trying to get a graphic designer on board, even an intern coming out of college, because you know they're just as skilled as a lot of people who've been working 2 or 3 years, and it's worked really well for us.
Great. And so that guy came in as an intern, is now a full-time employee.
So
that's a great story to see that happening.
Yeah, it worked out really well
for people. And then the other thing that you mentioned there was prototyping, really putting something together, making like a clickable, fully, you know, what appears to be kind of, you know, full version, but really it's images stuck together that you can click and transition through to. Have you used any tools in that space, or do you have any kind of suggestions to people that...
Well, mostly Adobe tools will allow you to do that. It's a little bit tricky if you don't know what you're doing initially, but once you know how to do it properly, you know, we use InDesign, and you can make any component on it clickable. And it does add a little bit of overhead to it, but if you want to get, like, if you just send someone a non-clickable PDF, you will get good feedback. But if someone can actually click through it like a website, it adds a new dimension to it, and you can actually,
it brings it to life.
Yeah, it brings it to life, and you can post that to a website like usertesting.com, which for $30 you can get, you know, a 20 to 30 minute video of somebody using your product, talking about it. Get a screen grab video of them using it, and that's invaluable, because you know, it's, you actually get to see a complete stranger think about it, talk about it, and get into their mindset. You know, it's a completely fresh pair of eyes, and that's what you need, and that's how you can refine your product quite quickly.
So taking it back, I suppose a couple of levels. You're an electrical engineer. How does an electrical engineer go from there to here? Maybe you could tell us a little bit about the journey.
So I started my career back in 2000 in a great Irish company called Parthas. It was mainly semiconductors, hardware, but it also did software. But at the time, we were developing really cool technologies like GPS, Bluetooth, 3G, Wi-Fi, kind of cutting edge stuff back then.
But very much in the hardware space.
Very much in the hardware space. I was more the ideas guy, developing algorithms and how these technologies work and that kind of thing. Kind of a systems guy. But the great part about working apart, I joined, it was like 150 people in the company. It grew to 500 or 600. Went to an IPO, valuation of $3 billion or something, and then when
was this one of the dot bombs? Was it
once the bubble burst, the dot-com bubble burst, it was luckily it was acquired by Siva, which is a big DSP company, and it just kind of went into that. But most of the Dublin staff left, which is a shame because there was about 500 really world-class engineers working in the place. But the great thing about working there was it was like a startup. Like some of the managers that were there were really aggressive and going after customers. I mean, we were really a startup, but we were selling technology into all the big tier 1 semiconductor companies. And I got to travel all around the US, Japan, Korea, doing kind of technical sales to these companies.
Cool.
So I got, from an early stage, I got to see the whole process of not just developing technology, but how to sell it, and direct relationships with kind of very entrepreneurial managers, which was great. I guess from there, after the dot bomb, a couple of spin-outs came out of that company, and I joined a company called Solansis, where I was technical lead for it was a software synthesizer product for mobile phones that generated 3D gaming sounds, and it could play MIDI files and things like that. But it was cool. It was a cool little project. We got patents on that. It had 3 times less processing and memory than other solutions, and we got to meet again with Samsung and Ericsson and companies like that, pitching it to it. And then I really got the bug for the entrepreneurial thing, because it was kind of naive in hindsight, because I thought I'm the guy generating all the technology and ideas here. I should be doing it for myself. Little did I know that the business development part, I kind of took for granted that was kind of easy. It was only when I tried to go and do it myself I realized that's not easy. But at the time, I felt like I should be going and doing it for myself. And then over the next few years, I kind of had it in my mind. I went on and I did an MBA, which is a great thing for an engineer to do, because you don't have a clue about the commercial aspects of a business when you're stuck in heavy product development. And it was great. I loved it just from seeing a company like as a complete system of human resources, marketing, product, finance, how you get it funded, all that kind of stuff. And it made me want to be an entrepreneur all the more. Okay. Albeit it doesn't teach you how to be an entrepreneur. It teaches you how to generate plans. It doesn't teach you how to execute.
That leads into my next question. There's been a lot of ads on the radio lately for one of the MBAs based over here. Yeah. And every time I hear them, I think, is an MBA, and seeing as you've done both, it'd be good to get your thoughts on this. So once upon a time, an MBA was a skill that set you up. You really got a full 360 of what's going on in business. Yeah. But people are increasingly going out and setting up their own business to get that experience, and actually rather than going through an academic environment, actually doing it. Yeah. And you've done both. And which would you see as being, I'm not going to say one above the other, but what are the merits of each?
I think going out and doing it yourself is far better, becoming an entrepreneur, because it's
flying by the seat of your pants. It's one way to learn.
Well, it's all about execution. Plans are all very well and good. Theory is all very well and good, but if you don't know how to go into a business meeting and close a deal, if you don't know how to get on a phone call and do a sales call, if you don't know how to go out to an investor and pitch, they're the skills you'll learn being an entrepreneur. They're the skills you hone, and any skill you have to get practice. And in a big company, I've done an MBA, you just never get a chance to do that kind of thing. Whereas being an entrepreneur, you get to practice that every day of the week. And being an entrepreneur, that's what it's about. It's about getting out and talking to people. There's no such thing as rejection. It's about sharing your idea. If people like it, great. If they don't, so what? You've learned something. But it's about that constant iteration of sharing your idea, improving it, find out what people like, getting your problem solved by talking to people. And that's not something you can be taught. That's something you have to go out and do. But it's brilliant. It's exciting, and I love it. I find it a real thrill and buzz about being an entrepreneur. And
you, interestingly enough, the MBA was kind of almost it gave you enough of an insight to then want to go and become an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think MBA, it's great for more senior management in a corporate type setting. You know how a whole business works, and it's very much with your manager's hat on, as opposed to entrepreneur is more a leadership role. It's about making things happen. Whereas MBA is more about managing things and making sure things are done right, and developing plans to make sure that that things improve and that kind of thing. So it's a great thing for people who want to stay in the corporate environment and
where there's structure.
Yeah, where there's structure. I think most people who do MBAs, they do it to get the big pay increase, from a consultancy firm or from a bank or something like that. Whereas that kind of thing never really turned me on. I didn't want to go down that route. I did it because I was an engineer, and I I felt like I needed to know more about businesses and how they work. And it was good for that. The company I worked for paid for it, so that helped. But if I had to choose between spending 20 odd grand on doing an MBA or putting 20 odd grand into starting a business, I'd highly recommend starting a business.
Okay, good to know. You mentioned part of your experience along the way was actually in the whole area of patents and algorithms and work you've done around that.
Yeah.
For people starting out, creating a technical moat around what you're doing, it can seem really attractive. Now, in the current space where stuff is moving so fast, oftentimes it's not what it used to be.
Yeah.
But what's your experience? Have you patented things along the way? How have you found that? What's your general thoughts on it?
Yeah. So, we had loads of patents for the companies that I worked prior to ShotClip. We did patent the shot clip approach to movie making, the kind of templated approach to movie making, and it was a mistake, basically. Patents are great for intellectual property. So if you have IP or an algorithm or a method that processes something faster, less memory, or that kind of thing, then that's IP, and that's really valuable, and it's worth patenting that. If you have the cash and resources to follow it up, that's something that's really important. But if it's just a software approach to something like ShotClip is, you're not going to get a European or global patent. You're only going to get a US one. And you could argue that anybody who wants to infringe it can't, because you don't have the resources to back it up anyway. And you could argue that you're just really putting your idea into the public domain when you don't need to be doing it. So I would be kind of against patenting just a software approach or ShotClip is a new way of making movies, but somebody could just do it slightly different and get away with it. Whereas IP, definitely patent. Investors love it. It does protect your product, but there is that issue about being able to fund it. So with ShotClip, we put in an initial patent application, which varies in cost depending on how much work you do yourself. There's some great patent lawyers here in Dublin, and they'll encourage you to try and do. The more work you do yourself, the less it will cost. It will cost us about €1,000 to put it in, but a year later you have to be able to back it up. So, and that's going to cost maybe $5,000. And if you've got a big decision to make, then what's more important, $5,000 for my business or $5,000 for this patent? And that's what it basically comes down to. And if it's an IP play, if you've got a really valuable piece of intellectual property, then it is worth it. But if it's some kind of software approach, I wouldn't really recommend it. Okay,
interesting to see. I suppose, kind of evolving on from that again. Then, how has your own, I suppose, experience been the life of a founder? Having got the experience of working in the corporate environment, having spent some time doing the MBA, and now being a I suppose, fully fledged founder. How have you found that experience? And would you have any tips and suggestions for people that would be listening or watching this?
Yeah, well, I guess I would be first and foremost an engineer at heart, So I think that does sway you to one side or another, I mean, I think any business, it's about product, it's about market, and it's about resources. And if you're an engineer, you're going to be more a product guy,
Okay.
Whereas really you shouldn't be. Like, a business is all about the market. It's about what the product enables. And I think as a technical person, you have to snap yourself out of that and think, it's not about the product, it's what the product's enabling. It's about product market fit. So that was a struggle for me as an engineer. But I do think it's got huge advantages coming from a technical background, because I think it's easier for a technical person to learn about business than for a business person to learn about technology. And if you are a tech startup, when your technology is online on smartphones, you need to be able to resource it and lead a team to deliver that. And I think having that technology background can be very valuable in that case.
Would you have any tips for people that come from technical backgrounds that get into business, that are then looking at all the, they say people buy people, so there's a lot of sales, a lot of relationships, a lot of schmoozing, for want of a better word, all that sort of stuff. People from a technical background generally don't, it's not something they're familiar with. So how have you found that transition? Is there anything?
I struggled with it to start with. I found it hard. I think in technology where things are very black and white, the they're efficient, they work, they meet the spec. Whereas in the business world, it's all grey. It's about negotiation. It's about working out a deal, and it's kind of a different mindset almost to someone who's been working technology. I think the great thing about being an entrepreneur is you get to practice. So you have to. I think the advice I give to people who are being entrepreneurs, just go out and talk to people. The more sales calls you try, the more investors you talk to, the more you share your idea, the better you get at it. It's as simple as that. You realize at the start, I'm absolutely terrible at this, and people even laugh at you or whatever. But that's great, because that gives you the incentive to improve. And it's like anything, you got to practice it to improve. And being a startup or an entrepreneur gives you that opportunity. And the more you talk to people, the more you go out there and try, the better you get it, and you'd be surprised, you will get better very quickly.
And as well, I suppose from my own experience and people I've talked to, the more you get out there and get in the situations where you go through it, even though they can go horribly wrong, your confidence builds up and up and up, and suddenly no matter what happens, it's like, whatever. That's just it's just another day at the office.
That's great.
You don't get bogged down in it.
Yeah, I mean, like particularly for like investment is one of the hardest things you can do, but. Like you go to investor panels, any mock investor panel, anybody who's going to be really harsh. Sometimes I call it a firing squad, because you have maybe a team of 5 or 6 accountants ready to shoot you down. But that is brilliant. It's terrifying at first, but hearing each one of their concerns or where the thing is going to collapse, that's what makes you start thinking, I have to address all these issues. So when you pitch, you've addressed them. You can cancel their concerns straight away, and that's what going out and practicing and doing it's all about. So
that's the learning part, isn't it?
That's the learning part.
You have to go out and get shot by the firing squad before you actually can get out and sail through it.
There's no such thing as rejection. There's no such thing as failure, because all of this is learning. It's helping you improve. Of course, you have to believe in your idea. Your idea has to, but you have to get it to that point where it fits into the person, whoever you're pitching it to, it can fit into their mindset and they can get it. And that takes time, it's obviously people who work in marketing and sales would be better at that, but I think anybody can learn it with enough practice and grooming. And that is an absolute crucial skill of any entrepreneur. You have to really focus on how you tell your story and portray your idea.
The pitching process.
Yeah.
So for the people at home, myself and Conor were both on the NDRC Launchpad program, and one of their focuses was very heavily, it was very heavy on pitching. I think you'd probably agree with that. And I know myself at the time, it's only with the value of hindsight, but getting your pitch down is really valuable. Would you agree? I think it's also linked to that idea of product market fit and not needing developers. You don't have to have done a whole load of actual product development or even won over customers. All you need is customer interest. All you need is that market validation, and your pitch is all about that. It's about actually explaining what you're doing. It's what the problem, your product, what market validation have you got, who have you talked to, how you're going to make money. And if you're going to pitch this really well, the story has to be airtight, it has to be really good, it has to be really punchy, and you can practice that. And it's going to involve actually going out and meeting people and doing the business development, doing the market research to get it airtight. So you've actually done an amazing amount of work by the time you've got a solid pitch. If there's any holes in it, if you haven't put in the business development or the market research, there'll be massive holes in it. And when you pitch it, people will have concerns. You haven't done this, you haven't done that. But in the process of getting a great pitch, you've done a huge amount of work. So NDRC was brilliant for that. NDRC were very heavily focused on the pitch, how you tell a story, slides, all graphical, very little text. So it's all about engaging your audience in your story and kind of taking them on a journey through it. And it takes time. It took us the full 3 months to get it nailed. A lot of pressure, but that's the challenge, and that's if you want to win investment, that's what you got to do. Yeah. Well, coming off the back of that, then you mentioned one of the hardest things you can do, and anybody I've spoken to that's done it, anyone that's got investment, says how hard it is. And you've recently just secured investment, so congrats on that front.
Thanks, man.
Excuse me. But do you have any, for people that are out there that have their own business or are looking at getting into the startup space, what would be your top tips to get investment?
It's a lot of what we've already talked about, but I mean, Ireland's brilliant for very early stage startups. They got the accelerator programs like NDRC. There's EI's competitive start fund. So you're really looking to get those first, and it's those initial validation of your idea, finding product market fit. Your pitch is absolutely crucial. And getting really good slides, a really good exec summary that you can send out in emails when you contact people. It's all about getting meetings, but it's never too early to talk to investors because it's a long process. It takes time to get a meeting. You're never gonna no investor's gonna just meet you and say, "Oh, I love your idea. I'm going to invest right now. Here's a couple of $100,000." It doesn't work like that. You have to groom them. You have to take them on a journey with you. Okay. You have to
hold their hand.
You have to reel them in. And it takes time. And it takes a lot of feedback. I mean, EI do great investor panels where you can go in and practice in front of them, and that helps groom you. But I mean, for us, like it took almost a year to get it across the line, and that was from a point where people were saying, "You're definitely investor ready. You will definitely get investment," but it still took a year for it to get across the line.
That must have required amazing patience.
Yes, it did. But I guess it's like anything in a startup. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And I guess if you've got a good gut feeling that the investment's coming, you're obviously going to keep fighting for it. But that's the thing. You need to a definite no from an investor is the next most valuable thing to a definite yes. So it's the same in sales. You constantly have to push someone for an answer. Do you not like this, and find out why they don't like it. Why would you not invest in this? And you constantly learn to improve your proposition to get them invested.
And have you found the Irish maybe? Where people, there's a long goodbye, where people are very bad at saying no as a race. And people I've spoken to that have got investment have found that really frustrating. Whereby there can be quite a lot of time sucked up. And I suppose, have you experienced that? Have you gone outside of Ireland to get funding? How have you, I suppose, dealt with that kind of trait that pops up?
Yeah, that's definitely there, because I suppose there's different sides to that. I mean, they don't want to say no because maybe they like the idea, but not right now, and they want you to do a bit more. But it'd be quite frustrating because sometimes you do that bit more and they kind of go, "Well, no, I'm not convinced." It's like anything; they're kind of keeping their hand in there just in case. But
that doesn't help the startup.
It doesn't help. I did find kind of London-based investors would just give you a more straight-up answer, saying, "No, this doesn't meet our criteria," or they would just break it down more simply, which is great actually, because a definite no is actually very valuable. But yeah, I mean, my advice for Ireland is just get out there and talk to all the seed funds here as quick as you can. Gauge their interest. There's 4 or 5 seed funds here you can talk to straight away. Then there's the angel community as well. But the whole thing can be quite frustrating. I mean, even with angels, we had numerous angels who would meet you 3 or 4 times, leading you to believe that they're going to invest, and then at the end of the process they go, "Oh, nah,"
or the line goes cold, which is worse, because you don't quite know where they stand.
And it doesn't matter if someone's investing 200k or 5k; they'll have the same amount of effort and questions and massaging to get them across the line. So it can be quite frustrating, and I think particularly in Ireland, there's a lot of angels who they want to invest 10 or 20 grand or at the lower level, and they just like being involved in the startup scene, and it's very rare they'll actually do investments, So that can be frustrating too, But it's kind of a minefield. It's everybody's journey through it is different. I mean, my advice to it is just go to as many of these things as you can, pitches at as many events as you can. You just don't know who you will meet on a given day, or who will just be turned on by your idea and who won't. We ended up going to London to get our investment because we just couldn't get it closed here. But it's something that I it's just across the water, €50 for a flight over, and you can arrange multiple meetings because there's just a bigger network there. So it's something I'd highly recommend to people if they're having trouble here. There's other avenues to explore.
Okay, and you kind of touched on that whole area of community, going to events, speaking. How have you found? There seems to be quite a bit of an evolution in Dublin, in particular, in the community over the last couple of years. Have you seen that transition?
Yeah,
Do you remember the days, if you go back 5-6 years ago, it didn't exist really,
no,
you know?
I mean, it's almost the stage now where it's not even just every week, it's almost every day of the week there's some startup event of some description on. No, it's fantastic. I think particularly the early stage startups, there's so many accelerators, so many programs, there's lots of supports, and you know, it's all about sharing your problems with people who are in the same boat as you. That's the thing I love about the NDRC. We're located. It's just there's, you know, must be 30 or 40 companies in there, and you'd be amazed just by sharing your problems. Just peer-to-peer learning is what it's all about. Like if you have a problem, you just chatting to someone, having a coffee at the coffee dock, and very often it'll be solved because they've had the same problem. You're all going through the same problems, and it's that peer-to-peer sharing between entrepreneurs that is the real value in the community that I see. But it's fantastic. You know, it really there's, I don't know how many accelerator programs there are in Ireland, but you know, those opportunities that they give startups to basically get from nothing into something that might get investment. There's a very strong pipeline of startups in Ireland.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So then I suppose to wrap things up, maybe you could give us some insights into where ShotClip is going and the industry that you're in, and then maybe your thoughts on the whole sector. You know, what's coming down the line.
Yeah. So I guess the whole area of cloud-based video editing is in its very early stages. So, you know, most people, when they want to edit or make a movie, it's desktop software on their own computer, which is not ideal because it slows everything down, and you know, very often they're complex to use. So cloud-based apps have really taken off. Video editing is still in its early stages, so it's great. So we've got our hand in there. There's only a small amount of competitors, which is great. But we're not really. We want to differentiate ourselves. We're not just a video editor. We're helping people make movies. We're a templated approach to making movies. Where on your smartphone, you fill up the template with shots. And another big exciting part that we're going after is social movie making. So, the idea of say a wedding couple can go on, change our wedding template for their own day, send it out to all their guests, and say this is the video app for our wedding. And everyone at the wedding can have great fun filling up the template with clips, and the template acts as a framework to collaborate, because you know, so Des is taking shots for shot 1 and I've taken shots for shot 2, and you get notifications of that. So it's full kind of social movie making at an event in the moment, and that's the kind of the exciting opportunity that we're going after. We can open up to a public space as well. So we want to go after big events like Electric Picnic, Glastonbury, things like that.
Fantastic.
Where, you know, if we have a template for the Glastonbury Festival and everyone is feeding into that, and clips trending on Twitter and all that kind of thing, that's the big piece that we're going after. That's the exciting part.
Fantastic. So within a year or so, we could see big festivals. Yeah. There would be huge shot lists of footage uploaded, and then people can select what they like, publish it, and that'll all be through ShotClip.
Yeah,
fantastic.
That's the target.
I look forward to it. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, so folks, that concludes our talk this evening with Conor McNally from ShotClip. Thanks very much for watching, and I hope you join us for the next time. Thank you.
Thank you.